Ever since Trump became president, the liberal media has been incessant in their efforts to invent scandals that will get him impeached. One of their favorite fake narratives is to paint Trump as a sexual predator, where paid women continue to come out of the woodwork with their outlandish claims. Now fake news purveyor Chris Matthews, who is one of the morons who's been out in full force perpetuating the sexual pervert narrative against our president, has just been railroaded with his own dirty sex scandal after several female employees are dropping a bombshell about what pervy Matthews did to them. If there's one thing liberals are incredibly skilled at in addition to being professional whiners, it's being flaming hypocrites. In their minds, comments that Trump made about grabbing pizza in a locker room over a decade ago is grounds for impeachment, but liberals can have sex with children and take trips to Pedophile Island, and no one bats an eye. Now another distrusting perv in the form of Chris Matthews is getting his time in the limelight in a scandal that could bring down his entire career, hilariously, after months of throwing mud at President Trump for the same thing. Digital Politics Today reported, on December 16, news hit that NBC had paid off a former assistant producer for Hardball with Chris Matthews who alleged sexual harassment by Chris Matthews. But now, more people have come forward to the Daily Caller alleging that Matthews ran an openly sexist news operation, where he was regularly abusive to staff. Staffers described themselves as battered wives according to 3 guests of the show and 2 former producers. 2 former NBC producers independently alleged Matthews would rate the looks of his female guests on a scale and said Matthews was so abusive that staff joked about being battered women. The interviews in total paint Matthews as a tyrant liable to fly off the handle at the slightest mistake, who was eager to objectify women and made inappropriate sexual comments appear to be a matter of course for someone in his position. Both former NBC producers requested anonymity out of concern for their future careers. One is actively seeking a job in media, and the other still works closely with MSNBC. One expressed fears about being labeled a troublemaker and cited the string of former Fox News women who have all but disappeared from television. Sadly, I know other women who won't even be an anonymous source regarding Chris Matthews because they're that concerned about the door closing on career opportunities in media, the producer concluded. Allegedly, Matthews objectified women, referring to them as cutie and sweetie pie, and making improper remarks. He would eye down a woman who walked on set or comment on their features or what they were wearing, one former producer said, explaining that it looked like Matthews was undressing the women with his eyes. He would objectify them and interrupt them in a way that he would never do to his male guests. He has a very outdated view of women. The other producer likened his behavior to that of a teenage boy, alleging that Matthews would rate his female guests on a numerical scale, deciding which guest was the hottest of the week, and would talk about how hot various women in the office were, including herself. Matthews has a history of making questionable and unprofessional remarks about women, including saying that Sarah Palin was electric but could be hotter, and being caught on a hot mic admiring Melania Trump's runway walk. In addition to the troubling behavior toward women, all 5 of the sources who spoke to Peck about the workplace environment at Hardball described Matthews as verbally abusive. They claim that Matthews' outbursts went beyond normal or justifiable frustration, and former staffers apparently felt like they had to walk on eggshells around their abusive boss. The two former producers independently referred to incidents involved screaming at staffers, throwing objects around, and generally demeaning guests and the people who worked for him. "I would describe it as verbal abuse," one former producer asserted, recalling their own experiences with Matthews. "The screaming is beyond the screaming you've ever heard. While you just feel so under attack." One former producer described him as assailing a staffer as worthless and an idiot in such a horrible way that they had to stop the production, and that the producer would never forget. "Seeing it would have made you shudder. You don't forget something like that." Another witness said they'd never seen anything like it before or since, and that all the guests were horrified. "I just cannot convey strongly enough how eerie it felt," the witness continued. "I've never been in a situation like that in a TV studio." Two sources with the show said he regularly belittled his staffers, one saying he acted like a drunk at a bar. What's even more disturbing is how MSNBC tried to sweep the entire incidents under the rug. When female staff complained or raised issues about the way Matthews treated them, the HR department was more interested in protecting the talent of MSNBC. This story is just further proof that these sexual allegations against Trump has been an entire witch hunt, as the real perverts are the liberals behind the news desks inventing ridiculous fake news about our president. Liberals never let the truth get in the way of a good story, and for months, we've witnessed the unbelievable lengths they will go to in order to get our president impeached. How hilarious is that the very news organization responsible for being behind all these fake stories about President Trump could now crumble with their own star anchor, Chris Matthews, being brought down in a sex scandal of his own.